Hey, Larry here. Acts 29 today, coming to you from Sunny World headquarters in Chiang Mai, Thailand. I'd like to welcome all my viewers in Thailand and around the world to this edition. Well, today we're going to continue on with the Esp J journey, and this time we're going to move on to patience, which is an extremely important virtue, but an extremely difficult one to have worked out in our lives. Not one of my favorites. So we're going to talk about patience, and this is the picture I chose for patience. This lion in the grass is very, very, very patient and waiting for just the right time to make his move on the wildebeest. The quality of being patient as the bearing of provocation, annoyance, misfortune, or pain, without complaint, without loss of temper, without irritation, or the like. An ability or willingness to suppress restlessness or annoyance when confronted with delay. To have patience with a slow learner. Quiet, steady perseverance, even-tempered care and diligence. Well, welcome to, I think, part 4 of this series on Esp J. In 1 Corinthians 13:4, it says, love is patient. Love is kind. So as God's own chosen people who are wholly set apart and sanctified for his purpose and well beloved by God himself, put on a heart of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Now listen to this about patience, which has the power, this is the power of patience, to endure. Remember, we're trying to endure to the end. Patience has the power to endure whatever injustice or unpleasantness and comes with good temper. All I can say is wow. This is so powerful and saves us from so many problems. Patience. Patience is so powerful. Patience is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. So how do we get it? Well, since it is the ability to wait without complaining or losing our tempers, it can only be developed by circumstances that cause us to have to wait. Traffic, checkout lines at the grocery store, the doctor's office, the dentist office, the DMV, when we fly, the bus, the restaurants, pregnancies, weather, and now a virus. At 71 years old now, I have no idea how that happened, and I'm much more patient than I was at 21. And living in Thailand has developed even more patience in me than I ever thought possible. I'm going to give you a tragic example of someone who did not have a lot of this most powerful weapon of patience developed in his life. One moment of patience may ward off great disaster. One moment of impatience may ruin a whole life. That's a Chinese proverb. So this is a story of a man who really didn't have much patience, and it's a very sad story. I was on a mission trip to India when I was 23 years old, and I learned many valuable lessons on that trip. One of the leaders of the group of about 13 people was a pastor from Idaho. I don't even remember his name, so we'll just call him Mr. Q. There was also a young guy on the trip that sat next to me on the plane going to India, and he told me all the way there how excited he was to be able to go and love on these people in India and how much he was looking forward to the trip. About halfway point in this trip, he was becoming very disillusioned with the people and the country of India because it was so slow and it took so long to get anything done. On the way home after 30 days in India and many challenging times, he told me, "I hate that country. I will never go back to that place." I thought, wow, so much changed in his thinking from when we were on our way there, and he couldn't wait to get there. I also noticed that Mr. Q was very upset at times because things were not going as planned, and his patience was running very thin also by the end of the trip. As we were all checking in for our flight from Madras in southern India to Bombay, Mumbai now, and then on to America, the agent at the counter said, "I'm sorry, but I don't have any records showing that you or this group is on this flight to Bombay." Mr. Q went through the roof. "What do you mean? You don't show us on this flight. We bought our tickets 6 months ago. You had better find out what's going on." Well, we were all kind of in shock at this outburst, but we just went and took a seat. And a while later, Mr. Q came and said that for $30 US a piece, we would be able to get on the flight. Well, we all agreed that it would not be a problem. But Mr. Q said, "No way. They are not going to rip us off by doing this. They're going to put us on that flight with no extra money being paid." Well, later, Mr. Q finally agreed to pay the extra so we wouldn't miss our connection flight in Bombay. So he made a big deal about this to the agent and was very upset and angry. About 30 minutes before boarding time, the agent came to Mr. Q and said, "You know what? We found out our reservations in the system had a problem, and we found you in the group, and so we all lined up and got our $30 back." Well, Mr. Q was feeling bad now about all the fuss he'd created because of his impatience. I have said all of this to tell you about what happened later, a few months after we returned home from India. I received news one day that Mr. Q and some other people had died in a plane crash that Mr. Q was piloting. It was a twin-engine plane, and they were coming from California back to Idaho. They got into some bad weather and hit a mountain and killed all on board. Because I was in the process of becoming a pilot myself, I knew exactly what had happened. It's called get-home-itis. Many pilots every year die from this temptation, and it goes like this. I need to get back home to my home base. I think I have enough fuel to make it. I can get the engine fixed when I get home. And the most deadly of all, I can beat that weather system. I don't think it will be that bad, and I'm sure I can get through the weather because I need to get home, or whatever else they needed to get to. So because of impatience, they take unnecessary risk, and instead of waiting a few hours or till the next day or whatever it takes to be safe, they take off thinking they can make it, and they don't. I have been there and done it myself, and more than once, by God's grace and protection, I'm still here to tell this story, but I have scared myself bad. I know he wanted to get back home for the Sunday church service that he was to speak at. I know he was a very impatient man. I was not at all surprised when I found out how he died. It made perfect sense after being with him for 30 days on the trip to India. I still struggle with being patient myself, especially when I drive. If you don't have patience driving in Asia, you will go crazy. So I've come a long way in letting patience have her perfect work, that I may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So trust God, be patient, relax, rejoice. It could always be worse. Let the power of patience have her perfect work, making you perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Now, I'm going to switch over here and read you a verse out of James. It's actually in James 1. And it says, "Consider it wholly joyful, my brethren, whenever you are enveloped in or encounter trials of any sort or fall into various temptations. Be assured and understand and be assured that the trial and the proving of your faith bring out endurance, steadfastness, and patience." Where does endurance and steadfastness and patience come from? It comes from trials and various temptations. Verse 4, "But let endurance, let steadfastness, let patience have full play and do a thorough work, that you may be people perfectly and fully developed with no defects, lacking nothing." Wow. You want to be perfect? You want to have no defects? You want to be lacking in nothing? It tells you right here in James 1 how it goes. That's why you consider it joyful when you fall into various trials and temptations, because these bring out endurance, steadfastness, and patience. That's how they come out. That's how these three come out, through trials and temptations. That's the trying of your faith. It works out endurance, steadfastness, and patience. Why? So that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Well, that's a gold mine, folks. That is a gold mine. So I think that's enough for people to digest here for one session. So in the next video, we're going to go on to something else very important. I'll see you there.